Okay, mixed weather today. I think I'm right at the edge where all the clouds are because you can actually see it's so sunny, I guess, further south. So it should maybe clear up soon. And what's going on today? I guess I read this at first, which talked about, again, the war between places like Ukraine and Russia and how they're using a lot of drone operators to monitor situations, collect, I guess, data. This one's kind of interesting to think about. It says here, Ukrainian women have started learning a crucial war skill, how to fly a drone. It says here, Ukrainian women have played a crucial part in their country's resistance to Russia's full-scale invasion. Now, a new school is training women to play a vital new role. The Female Pilots Ukraine is the country's first school dedicated to solely teaching women, both civilians as well as those serving in Ukraine's security forces, how to fly drones. Both the Ukrainian and Russian militaries have been using drones in the war in Ukraine for reconnaissance and fighting. Ukraine has many women in the military, but they rarely work as drone pilots, according to the school's administrators. And by the sounds of it, their training is essentially basic stuff. For example, I guess launching the drone, operating it, managing things like the batteries. And it says the drones, they can fly at a speed of up to 45 miles per hour and at an altitude around half a mile, says instructor Mikata Kosa. A good drone pilot must be virtuoso in working with maps, he says, adding they have to have a compass in their head. And once they learn how to use it, it says here, apparently people are really motivated to join the military afterwards. It says school founder Valery Borakov says students can take their new skills into the Ukrainian military if they want, saying, I was very surprised that 80% of our students want to go to the front line, he says. And then afterwards it talks about how this is privately owned and it costs them about $3,000 a month to operate. But what it got me to think in that sense of training people to fly the drone and stuff, overall, I still find it a little weird when people try to make it sound like you're flying something super complicated, like a huge helicopter or something like that, when in reality, a lot of this stuff is basically self-operating for the most part, keeping itself stable. And you can even see like in these pictures, it makes me think where here, it seems like everyone's so casual flying it. That's the way it should be for the most part, in my opinion, when you're learning. Just get out there and practice. I've said it before, like for myself, in terms of actually learning how to fly the drone, no aviation background or anything like that, in terms of all these regulations and so forth, it didn't actually teach me how to fly at all, in my opinion. All my skills actually came from playing video games because it's so similar in terms of things like the controller, the reaction times, what you have to monitor and keep track of, versus, again, having to worry about things like clouds and all that. And it makes me think too, because again, like with this picture, everyone's so casual. I remember here in the comments before, there was someone trying to promote, for example, over-the-top regulations, a commercial person from the sounds of it, and he was insistent everything needs to be regulated like a huge man aircraft, for example. It doesn't matter if it's a 10-gram toy or something like that. And people were saying, oh, get off of it. He's like wearing all like, the vests and so forth to try to make it look like you're super, I guess, professional per se. Like, danger, danger, extreme operation. But really, if it's like a quote toy and all that, there should be no difference in treating it as something quote casual, correct? I mean, it depends on what you're using and how, ultimately. If you're saying you're training them to use kind of like a drone with a huge weapon and all that, then that's different. If they're transporting people, then again, that's a little different. But to make it sound so complicated when like here, it's more about just going out there and use it, that's a little bit over the top in my opinion. And I was reading this story about the company, I guess, Foxconn in China. They basically produce a lot of things like iPhones and all that. And in China, they still have a really strict, I guess, zero COVID policy. And because of that, a lot of the workers before, they were, say, quitting or not wanting to show up, and they had to hire a lot of people. But apparently, they didn't actually, I guess, pay these workers some kind of bonus or something like that. And then with all the things like lockdowns, it was like a massive protest. It's really what it was, a massive protest fighting with authorities and so forth. This one says, mass resignations of iPhone workers after unrest with a report of 30% production loss. There have been mass resignations of iPhone workers following the recent unrest at the plant, caused by Foxconn failing to pay the promised recruitment bonuses and growing fears about the COVID-19 outbreak within the plant. More than 20,000 new hires are said to have left. So they claim here the mess began when there was a COVID-19 outbreak inside Foxconn's biggest iPhone assembly plant in Zhengzhou. So with that, it sounded like fear took over, where people wanted to leave and go back home. And because of that, like it says here, Foxconn initially offered bonuses to persuade workers to stay and then increase them up to tenfold when this didn't work. Infections continued to spread and the plant was placed on an even more stringent lockdown. So that sounds like another reason why people were mad, where if this is correct, so I was actually reading some comments online in various social media sites and all that, like the Chinese ones. Some people were saying they were apparently locked down in the company, like, oh, you better not go out now because there's a virus spreading, so what do? I guess you'll keep working there forever while you're locked down, so possibly that's another reason on why people are angry. So as they say here, apparently there was a quote technical error where people didn't get their bonuses and so forth, and with this massive, I guess, protest, it says here the company offered people $1,400 to, I guess, resign and leave. It says the source said more than 20,000 workers, mostly new hires, not yet working on production lines, took the money and left. And as they mentioned, you can see this stuff all over the social media sites. It's kind of interesting actually when you look at it from the perspective of some people, where they're saying people are kind of quote brave for doing this, because mostly people in China, like in terms of working and stuff like that, people don't speak up. Like it says here in this post, it says the brave working class has stood up. Here anyways, when you see a protest, it's kind of like one of those normal things, but over there it's not really, I guess, common because of all the punishments that could occur just for speaking out and all that, since it is a communist country, so it is kind of a bigger deal. But yeah, that's one big mess, huh? At the same time, just surprised anyone's still trying to go for a zero COVID policy per se, just with everything that's coming out nowadays in terms of facts and all that. Wow, that looks awesome. Too bad I don't have a better camera for this. Alright, see you guys later.